Hey, I'm Nancy Cavey, National ERISA and Individual Disability Attorney. Welcome to this week's episode of Winning Isn't Easy. Before we get started, the Florida Bar says I have to give you a legal disclaimer that says this podcast isn't legal advice. Nothing will ever prevent me from giving you an easy-to-understand overview of the disability insurance world, the games that disability carriers play, and what you need to know to get the disability benefits you deserve. So off we go. Do you have ME/CFS or fibromyalgia? Now, I talk a lot about ME/CFS and fibromyalgia claims because I think that they are the trickiest cases to win. In this episode, I'm going to talk about three topics. But I want you to understand that even though I'm talking about ME/CFS, it doesn't mean that these topics aren't relevant to other diseases because disability carriers will generally play out of the same playbook. Topic 1, is a diagnosis of fibromyalgia sufficient to overcome an Aetna disability insurance claim denial? 2, chronic fatigue syndrome disability insurance claims and what you need to know about limited disability benefit clauses. And fibromyalgia and objective medical evidence. Hartford challenges a 20-year claim. Ready to take a break before we jump into this week's episode? Let's do it. Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. Fibromyalgia and objective medical evidence. How Hartford challenged a 20-year claim. They've been writing checks for 20 years. What happened? Look, disability carriers don't like fibromyalgia disability claims, and they will often deny these claims on the basis of a lack of objective medical evidence. And it's rare, quite frankly, that they pay claims long, and even as long as, in this case, 20 years. Let me tell you the story about Terry Haining and the Hartford Life Insurance Company. Now, Haining had been treated for over 20 years for fibromyalgia and depression. Out of the blue, Hartford said, we don't believe the treating physicians anymore. We're going to deny this claim. She filed a lawsuit. And the court fortunately found that Hartford's exclusive reliance on a series of liar-for-hire file reviewers and paid consultants showed that the benefit termination was arbitrary and capricious. And they noted that Hartford had relied on an overly cribbed view of this case and what constituted objective medical evidence and documented clinical findings. Now, the court acknowledged that fibromyalgia does not necessarily lend itself to laboratory findings or other quantitative medical testing. And ultimately, the court overturned this denial and reinstated the benefits. But you need to understand that that doesn't always happen. In this appeal, what should have been done, and hopefully was done, is that they addressed what the objective medical evidence was that established the diagnosis, established objectively through a functional capacity evaluation or a CPET exam, the true and ongoing nature of her restrictions and limitations, and how the FCE was objective medical evidence of the restrictions limitations, and then tied it all together with a vocational opinion. I know that this segment is about objective medical evidence, but ultimately, because you have the burden of proof, you've got to tie it all together in a bow tie, if you will, or in a bow ribbon, or whatever you want to call it, and basically prove an objective basis of the diagnosis to the extent that you can in a medical condition like this. More importantly, objective evidence of the restrictions and limitations, and then objective evidence that establish a causal relationship between those restrictions and limitations and your inability to do your own or any occupation. The more proof, the better, and the more likely it is that a judge will overturn a wrongful claim denial or termination. Just remember, it doesn't matter how long that they've paid you the benefits. They're always looking for a reason to deny the claim, terminate the benefits, and stop their exposure. Got it? Well, I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of Winning Isn't Easy. If you've enjoyed this episode, consider liking the page, leaving a review, sharing it with your friends or family. And please, subscribe to this podcast. You'll be notified every time a new episode comes out. I hope you'll tune in to next week's episode, and I thank you for being with us.